The massive space station hung in the void like a glittering jewel, its crystalline walls reflecting the light of distant stars. Inside the Grand Council chamber, 12 different alien species sat around a circular table that had witnessed countless decisions over the past 1,000 years. Today's meeting, however, carried an urgency that none of them had felt in centuries. Ambassador Veltar of the Centauri Collective was the first to break the tense silence. His tall, blue-skinned frame towered over the table as he gestured toward the holographic display floating in the center. The display showed a three-dimensional map of the galaxy, with tiny red dots spreading like wildfire through what had once been empty space. "Look at this." Veltar's voice carried a mixture of anger and disbelief. 47 colonies in less than 50 years. These humans are expanding faster than any species we've ever encountered. High Chancellor Kixmoth, whose insect-like features twitched with agitation, leaned forward. Her compound eyes reflected the starlight filtering through the station's transparent dome. When we first detected their radio signals, they were confined to a single world. Now they've spread across 17 star systems. The vegan representative, a creature that resembled a walking tree with silver bark, rustled his leaves in agreement. Their ships appear everywhere. They establish trade routes before we even realize they're there. Yesterday they were primitive. Today they're our neighbors. Around the table, murmurs of concern grew louder. The hegemony had ruled this section of the galaxy for over 2 millennia. They had established the rules, maintained the peace, and decided which species could expand and which had to remain confined to their home worlds. The humans had done none of the required paperwork. They hadn't asked permission. They had simply started spreading across the stars, as if they owned them. Their technology advances, too, quickly, added the representative from the Rigel Consortium, his metallic voice echoing in the chamber. Our intelligence reports show they've developed faster-than-light travel, energy weapons, and defensive systems in a fraction of the time it took our ancestors. High Chancellor Kixmoth stood up, her wings buzzing softly behind her. The real problem isn't their expansion speed. It's their attitude. Every species that joins the galactic community follows our protocols. They submit applications for colony permits. They respect our established territories. They acknowledge our authority. She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. The humans ignore us completely. They act as if we don't exist. They establish colonies wherever they please and tell us it's for mutual benefit and peaceful coexistence. The chamber erupted in angry chittering, buzzing, and various alien sounds of displeasure. Ambassador Veltar raised his hand for silence. We've sent them diplomatic messages. We've offered them membership in our alliance. We've even tried to establish formal trade agreements. Their response is always the same. We appreciate your interest, but we'll handle our own affairs. "Arrogant mammals," muttered the Procyon delegate, his scale hide shifting color from blue to angry red. They think their little metal ships and primitive weapons make them equals to civilizations that mastered space travel before their species learned to make fire. High Chancellor Kixmoth activated the holographic display again, zooming in on the human colonies. Each red that represented a world where humans had planted their flag and claimed territory that belonged to the hegemony for generations. Some of these worlds contained valuable resources. Others sat on important trade routes. All of them represented a direct challenge to the established order. "The situation has become intolerable," she announced. "If we allow these humans to continue their unauthorized expansion, other species will follow their example. The entire galactic order will collapse." The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some representatives argued for economic sanctions. Others suggested diplomatic isolation. A few even proposed accepting humans as equal partners in hegemony. But as the discussion continued, it became clear that none of these moderate approaches would work. Finally, Ambassador Veltar stood and called for silence. "We face a simple choice. Either we maintain our authority over this galaxy, or we surrender to a species that refuses to acknowledge our legitimacy. The humans have forced our hand." The vote was unanimous. 12 species, representing billions of citizens across hundreds of worlds, agreed that humanity posed an unacceptable threat to galactic stability. The humans would be given one final opportunity to submit to hegemony authority. If they refused, They would face the combined military might of the most powerful alliance in known space. As the council session ended, a message began its journey toward the small blue world where humanity had first emerged. The message was simple and clear: submit or be destroyed. The hegemony expected an answer within 6 hours. None of them imagined that the humans might already be waiting for this exact moment. The message arrived at exactly 3:47 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, crackling through Earth's deep space communication array with the unmistakable signature of alien technology. Within minutes, emergency protocols activated across the globe. Red phones rang in capital cities. Military commanders were pulled from their beds. The President of the United States found himself in the White House Situation Room before dawn, staring at a translation that made his blood run cold. General Robert Hayes read the ultimatum aloud one more time, his weathered face showing no emotion. Complete surrender of all military forces. Dismantling of all colonial governments. Acceptance of permanent vassal status under hegemony oversight. They're giving us 6 hours to decide. Around the polished oak table, the most powerful people on Earth sat in stunned silence. Secretary of Defense Michael Thompson drummed his fingers nervously against his coffee cup. Admiral Elizabeth Turner, head of the Space Navy, studied the alien message with the calm intensity of someone who had been preparing for this moment her entire career. 6 hours. President James Crawford repeated slowly. They send us an ultimatum that would end human independence forever, and they expect an answer by lunchtime. It gets worse, General Hayes continued. Intelligence indicates they position fleets near all our major colonies. This isn't just a threat. They're already in attack formation. The room erupted in urgent whispers. Some voices called for immediate diplomatic outreach. Others suggested evacuation protocols for the outer colonies. A few even whispered about the possibility of negotiating some kind of partial surrender that might save Earth itself. President Crawford raised his hand for silence. Admiral Turner, what's the status of our defensive capabilities? Turner's lips curved into what might have been a smile. Mr. President, I think it's time we activated Project Safeguard. The name sent a ripple of recognition around the room. For 50 years, humanity had been preparing for this exact scenario. Every peaceful exploration mission had carried hidden military components. Every trade ship had been equipped with advanced sensors that mapped alien territories and capabilities. Every colony established had been positioned not just for resources, but for strategic military advantage. Are you telling me we've been planning for war this whole time? Asked the Secretary of State, his voice barely above a whisper. Not planning for war, Turner corrected. Planning to survive one. There's a difference. She activated the wall display, and suddenly the room filled with a three-dimensional map of human space that none of them had ever seen before. The familiar colonies were there, but now they were connected by a web of hidden installations. Cloaked weapons platforms floated near asteroid fields. Automated defense networks spanned entire star systems. Hidden shipyards produced vessels that didn't appear on any official records. Every time an alien delegation visited Earth for cultural exchange, we learned something new about their technology, Turner explained. Every peaceful trade mission taught us their languages, their military protocols, their weaknesses. We've been studying them just as carefully as they've been studying us. General Hayes leaned forward. The aliens think we're primitive because we don't have their fancy energy shields or planet-killer weapons. What they don't understand is that humans have been perfecting warfare for thousands of years. We just got very good at hiding our preparations. President Crawford stared at the display, watching as real-time data flowed in from across human space. Ship positions, weapon systems, defensive installations that had been disguised as mining equipment or communication relays. How long have you known this moment would come? Since first contact, Turner admitted, not the exact timing, but the inevitability. Think about it from their perspective. They've controlled this part of the galaxy for centuries. Along comes a young, aggressive species that refuses to follow their rules. Conflict was always inevitable. The president walked to the window, looking out at the Washington Monument gleaming in the early morning sun. Somewhere out there, beyond Earth's atmosphere, alien fleets were positioning themselves to destroy everything humanity had built among the stars. They want an answer in 6 hours, he said quietly. We can give them one right now, Admiral Turner replied. President Crawford turned back to face the room. Admiral, send our response immediately. Turner's fingers moved across her tablet with practiced efficiency. The message that began transmitting toward the hegemony fleet was short and simple. We decline your generous offer. If you want what we built, come and take it. As the transmission raced through space, hidden systems across 17 star systems began coming online. Weapons that had waited decades for activation charged their power cells. Ships that had masqueraded as civilian vessels revealed their true nature. The galaxy was about to discover that humanity's expansion hadn't been peaceful exploration. It had been the largest military deployment in galactic history, and the aliens had never seen it coming. The first hegemony fleet materialized near Proxima Centauri at exactly 9:15 a.m. Earth time, their massive ships emerging from hyperspace in perfect formation. Fleet Commander Zhao Qin stood on the bridge of his flagship, a vessel so large it could house an entire city. Around him, tactical displays showed the positions of over 10,000 warships spread across 17 human star systems. All fleets report ready, announced a communications officer, her voice carrying the confidence of a military force that had never known defeat. Human defensive positions are minimal. This should be concluded within hours. Zhao Qin nodded approvingly. The humans had built impressive colonies, but their military presence seemed laughably small. A few dozen ships here and there, mostly converted cargo vessels with basic weapons bolted to their hulls. The hegemony had faced rebellions before, and they all ended the same way. Begin the assault, he commanded. What happened next would be studied in military academies for generations to come. The moment hegemony ships moved toward human positions, space itself seemed to come alive. Asteroids that had drifted peacefully for decades suddenly revealed weapon systems. What appeared to be communications satellites began targeting alien vessels with precision that defied explanation. Mining platforms transformed into fortress-like defensive installations. Captain William Foster watched from the bridge of his destroyer as the trap unfolded perfectly. His ship, like every vessel in the human fleet, had been built for one purpose: to destroy enemies who thought they were superior. The aliens had larger ships, more advanced shields, and weapons that could crack planets. But they had one critical weakness. They had no idea what they were really fighting. Target the lead dreadnought, Foster ordered calmly. Fire when ready. The weapon that lanced out from Foster's destroyer didn't look like much compared to the colorful energy beams the aliens preferred. It was a simple projectile, moving at a significant fraction of light speed, guided by computers that had been calculating this exact shot for 37 years. The alien dreadnought's shields flickered and died. The projectile punched through the hull like paper, and the massive ship began breaking apart in a chain reaction of secondary explosions. Impossible, Zhao Qin whispered, staring at his tactical display. Their weapons shouldn't be able to penetrate our defensive systems. But across the battlefield, the impossible was happening repeatedly. Human ships, each one smaller than the aliens' escort vessels, were systematically destroying targets that should have been invulnerable. The humans weren't using energy weapons or exotic matter. They were using kinetic projectiles, electromagnetic pulses, and tactics that the hegemony's advanced computers couldn't predict or counter. Lieutenant Commander Jennifer Walsh coordinated the defense of the Tau Ceti system from her command ship, watching as alien formations crumbled under human fire. They're retreating from Sector 7, she reported. All enemy heavy cruisers in that area are either destroyed or disabled. The aliens weren't just losing ships. They were losing them in ways that made no sense. Human vessels seemed to know exactly where enemy ships would be before they arrived there. Every alien tactical maneuver was countered before it could be executed. Every attempt to regroup was met with precise strikes that targeted command ships and communication relays. Admiral David Mitchell led the sole defense fleet with surgical precision, his tactical genius finally unleashed after decades of preparation. They fight like they've been reading the same playbook for 1,000 years, he observed, watching another alien formation fall apart. Same formations, same strategies, same weaknesses. The truth was even more devastating than Mitchell realized. Humanity hadn't just been preparing weapons and ships. They have been studying alien psychology, military doctrine, and tactical preferences through 50 years of careful observation. Every peaceful contact had been an intelligence-gathering operation. Every cultural exchange had been a chance to understand how their enemies thought. The aliens preferred massive ships because they believed bigger meant stronger. They used predictable formations because they had never faced an opponent who could adapt quickly. They relied on energy shields because no species they had encountered used simple kinetic weapons at the velocities humans could achieve. Within 6 hours of the first shot, 3 entire hegemony fleets had been completely destroyed. The survivors found themselves trapped in human space, their communication networks jammed, their escape routes blocked by cloaked minefields that had been waiting patiently for decades. Fleet Commander Zalquin stared at the debris field that had once been his mighty armada. Of the 3,000 ships under his command, fewer than 200 remained functional. Around him, his bridge crew worked frantically to establish contact with other fleet commanders, but the reports coming in painted the same picture everywhere. The humans weren't just winning. They were demonstrating complete tactical superiority against opponents who had ruled the galaxy for centuries. For the first time in his military career, Zalquin began composing a message he never thought he would have to send. A request for immediate reinforcements to deal with an enemy that had proven far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. High Chancellor Kixma stood frozen in the Hegemony Command Center, watching tactical displays that showed a disaster beyond her worst nightmares. Red markers indicating destroyed fleets blinked across the holographic map like dying stars. In 18 hours of combat, the most powerful military alliance in the galaxy had lost 70% of its invasion force. "How is this possible?" she whispered, her compound eyes reflecting the crimson glow of defeat. These humans were supposed to be primitives. The answer came from an unexpected source. Every communication system in the command center suddenly crackled to life, broadcasting on frequencies that should have been impossible for humans to access. The voice that emerged was calm, professional, and utterly confident. "Attention, hegemony forces. This is Commander Thomas Wright of the Terran Defense Network. I believe you're looking for an explanation." The entire command staff turned toward the main display as a human face appeared on screen. Wright looked ordinary, almost boring, with graying hair and laugh lines around his eyes. He could have been anyone's grandfather, but his words carried the weight of absolute authority. "For 37 years, we've been monitoring your communications. Every diplomatic message, every military transmission, every private conversation between your fleet commanders. We know your battle plans before your own crews do." Kixma felt her legs give out. She collapsed into her command chair, staring at the human who had somehow penetrated the most secure communication networks in known space. "Impossible. Our encryption is unbreakable." Wright smiled, the expression somehow more terrifying than any alien war cry. "Your encryption is indeed impressive. It took us nearly 15 years to crack it completely. But once we understood your mathematical principles, monitoring your communications became routine." The command center erupted in panic chatter. Officers scrambled to check security protocols, but Wright continued speaking as if he could hear their conversations. "Every peaceful trade mission you sent to human space carried intelligence officers. We knew that from day one. What you didn't realize is that we were gathering intelligence too. Every cultural exchange, every diplomatic meeting, every friendly visit to our colonies was an opportunity for us to study you." Admiral Patricia Clark's voice joined the transmission from her flagship somewhere in human space. "We learned your languages by pretending to be interested in cultural exchange. We studied your technology by requesting trade demonstrations. We analyzed your military tactics by observing your honor guard formations during state visits." The revelations kept coming, each one more devastating than the last. The humans described decades of careful observation, patient study, and meticulous preparation. Every seemingly innocent interaction had been part of a vast intelligence operation that mapped hegemony capabilities down to the smallest detail. "Your species have been spacefaring for thousands of years," Wright continued, "but you've been fighting the same wars the same way for centuries. Same ship designs, same tactical formations, same strategic thinking. You became predictable." Lieutenant Colonel Benjamin Hayes, speaking from another human vessel, added his own piece to the puzzle. We've been preparing for this war since the day we made first contact. Every colony we established was positioned for strategic advantage. Every trade route we developed was designed to give us intelligence on your military movements. The scope of human deception was staggering. While the hegemony had seen rapid expansion and peaceful development, the humans had been building the largest military network in galactic history. Cloak weapons platforms had been disguised as communication relays. Military shipyards had been hidden inside asteroid mining operations. Entire defensive fleets had masqueraded as civilian cargo vessels. "You made one critical error," Commander Wright explained, his voice carrying a note of professional respect for his enemies. "You assumed that a young species would fight like a young species. You expected us to be impulsive, disorganized, emotional." Captain Daniel Brooks, coordinating human forces in the outer systems, continued the explanation. "Humans have been perfecting warfare for our entire history. We've studied every conflict, analyzed every tactical innovation, learned from every mistake. When we finally reached the stars, we brought 40,000 years of military evolution with us." The most shocking revelation came last. Major Rebecca Stone, speaking from a hidden command center that the hegemony had never detected, delivered the final blow to alien confidence. "We've been waiting for you to declare war. Our entire expansion strategy was designed to provoke exactly this response. We needed you to attack us all at once in a conventional military engagement, so we could demonstrate our capabilities to every species in the galaxy." Kixmoth stared at the display in horror. "You wanted this war?" Wright's expression grew serious. "We wanted to end it quickly and decisively. The galaxy needs to understand that humanity cannot be conquered, cannot be intimidated, and will not accept second-class citizenship in our own universe." As the transmission ended, Kixmoth realized that everything she thought she knew about these humans had been wrong. They weren't primitive newcomers, stumbling through space. They were apex predators who had been hunting the hegemony from the moment first contact was made. The silence that followed the human transmission was more terrifying than any weapon hegemony had ever faced. Across 17 star systems, the scattered remains of what had once been the galaxy's most feared military force drifted helplessly through space. Ships that had ruled the void for centuries now served as tombstones for crews who had never imagined they could be defeated. Fleet Commander Zalquin sat in his damaged command chair, staring at displays that told the story of complete military collapse. Of the 10,000 vessels that had begun this campaign with such confidence, fewer than 800 remained operational. Even those survivors were trapped, surrounded by human forces that seemed to appear and disappear at will. "Sir," his communications officer called out, her voice barely steady, "we're receiving a transmission on all frequencies. It's the humans again." The main display activated, revealing Admiral Margaret Stone standing on what was clearly the bridge of a massive warship. Behind her, tactical screens showed the positions of every surviving hegemony vessel, tracked with surgical precision. Her uniform was crisp, her expression calm, and her eyes held the quiet confidence of someone who had achieved total victory. "Attention remaining hegemony forces," she began, her voice carrying across space to reach every alien survivor. "I am Admiral Margaret Stone of the Terran Defense Network. As of this moment, 22 hours and 37 minutes after hostilities began, the Terran Defense Network formally accepts your unconditional surrender." The words hit like physical blows. Unconditional surrender. The hegemony, which had dictated terms to dozens of species over the centuries, was now being dictated to by beings they had considered primitives just yesterday. "Your remaining vessels will immediately power down all weapon systems and await escort to designated processing areas," Stone continued. "Any attempt to resume hostilities will result in immediate destruction. Your crews will be treated according to established galactic conventions for prisoners of war." General Robert Hayes appeared alongside Stone, his weathered face showing no trace of triumph, only grim professionalism. "The Hegemony Council will convene within 72 hours to negotiate new terms of coexistence. These negotiations will take place under human oversight and will establish humanity's place as an equal member of the galactic community." Equal member. The phrase was carefully chosen. The humans weren't demanding to rule the galaxy, but they were making it clear that they would never again be treated as inferior beings who needed permission to expand among the stars. Captain William Foster's voice joined the transmission from his destroyer, which had personally accounted for the destruction of 7 hegemony capital ships. Repatriation of prisoners will begin immediately. Medical assistance is being provided to damaged vessels. Food and water supplies are en route to ships experiencing life support difficulties. Even in victory, the humans demonstrated a professionalism that stunned their defeated enemies. Instead of gloating or seeking revenge, they were already working to prevent unnecessary suffering among the survivors. High Chancellor Kixmoth found her voice at last, though it cracked with the weight of defeat. How do we underestimate you so completely? Admiral Stone's expression softened slightly. You didn't underestimate our capabilities. You underestimated our determination. Humans have a saying, the only way to ensure peace is to prepare for war. We've been preparing for this conflict since the day we learned we weren't alone in the universe. Lieutenant Commander Jennifer Walsh, coordinating rescue operations throughout the battlefield, added her own perspective. Your species have lived in peace for so long that you forgot what desperation looks like. Humans have never had that luxury. We've always known that survival requires strength, and strength requires sacrifice. The scope of human sacrifice became clear as the transmission continued. Entire generations had dedicated their lives to this moment. Scientists had spent decades developing weapons specifically designed to counter hegemony technology. Engineers had built hidden infrastructure across dozens of star systems. Military officers had planned for battles that might never come. Every human colony was both a settlement and a fortress, explained Commander David Chun, whose tactical brilliance had coordinated the defense of 3 entire sectors. Every trade mission was also a reconnaissance operation. Every peaceful gesture concealed military preparation. President James Crawford's voice reached them from Earth, carrying the authority of humanity's elected leadership. The age of hegemony dominance is over. The age of galactic cooperation begins now. Humanity offers partnership to all species willing to treat us as equals. Those who cannot accept this new reality will find themselves increasingly isolated. As the transmission ended, Zhao Qin realized that the humans had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history. They had defeated the hegemony not through superior technology or overwhelming numbers, but through superior planning, patience, and understanding of their enemies. The survivors would return to their home worlds carrying a message that would reshape the entire galaxy. Humanity had arrived, and they were here to stay. The war that was supposed to end human expansion had instead announced the beginning of a new era, where the species from the small blue planet would never again ask permission to reach for the stars.